Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia are certainly a path that no one wants to find themselves on. This is part 2 of my conversation with my friend Vivian Reed, who did find herself on this very path with her mother. She is spending some time with us today talking just about that journey. We're talking about the 10 red flags of dementia. And if you missed that on part 1, you're going to want to go back and listen to that. So get ready for part 2 with Vivian Reed. I'm Robin McCoy, your host. This is Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60. In today's world, older adults face major transitions like downsizing, relocating, or modifying their homes to age in place, all while embracing life after these changes. As a senior home advisor and seasoned realtor, Robin McCoy guides these decisions with care and thoughtful planning, helping create a vibrant future. Welcome to Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60 with me, your host, Robin McCoy. How do you approach people, like, let's just say, you and your mom or your parents or somebody you love that you suspect is like headed down this road or further down this road than you originally thought? And one of the things I know too, and how do you talk to people that are in it, right? They're in it. And you just said, where's my purse? Or where's Dave? Meaning her husband who passed away 15 years ago. Not saying, Mom, Dad died.
Right.
Because now she's going to mourn Dad again. He went to the store. He'll be back. Or what you were saying about somebody stole my car. You don't say nobody stole your car. You haven't driven a car in 20 years. You say, we've called the police. They're looking for it. Right. So talk a little bit about how do you approach people? How do you advise that if we think something's going on with somebody, how do we gently and
so
yet...
what I have learned from different things is it's more important to be happy than to be right. And when somebody has Alzheimer's or dementia, never correct. Never. It just makes them feel stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just
So that's where
never
the
correct.
combativeness and the anger comes from.
Exactly. And you kind of have to, like, I would come home from work and Mama, we'd be hanging out having a cup of tea in her room, and she'd tell me about her day. I'd be like, well, there were all these dogs and they were all trying to kidnap the dogs, and these people over here went to battle with these people over here, and that was her. And I couldn't say, Mom, that couldn't happen. I would just go, my goodness, that is crazy. Then what happened? Who would have thought? Why were they doing that? And just, go into whatever world she was in, whatever her experience was. If she thought that she was waiting for her dad to get here so they could go to church, then you just talk about, well, what do you do to get ready to go to church? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just, yeah, you have to kind of pivot and get creative to get where they're at, and make it up. You make it up,
Well, I
you
love
know?
what you said, that it's better to be happy than right, because trying to make them right or correct, what's the benefit of that? There
Right,
is none. There is
right.
none. There's
Yeah.
no
It
upside.
frustrates. Yeah, yeah. There's no winning in that.
Yeah, because you're not going to reverse what's happened in their brain. So now that they're going to remember
Right.
that they don't have a car, or that
Uh-huh.
there really weren't people chasing dogs and kidnapping dogs, or
Right.
whatever that story is, and
Right.
that they're thinking about. And so there's no upside to telling
Yeah.
them that didn't happen.
Or, when Mama would ask something about her parents, are they still, doing okay? And I would never tell her that they were dead,
No, because you
you
got to
know,
mourn, then you're mourning the death all over again.
over again. Yeah.
And who would want that?
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody wants that. So, and she would tell people, I remember she was so proud she would tell people that my daddy flew helicopters for Ross Perot. And I had people at the independent living say, oh, your daddy flew helicopters for Ross Perot. And I was like, well, actually, I worked for Ross Perot. Daddy was a helicopter pilot, but she just,
She's combined the two things
yeah,
that
yeah,
that
yeah.
she knew,
And
two true facts that she
Yeah.
put together. And that's
Right.
fine.
Yeah. So I just let him believe that. But, when you have a friend or a loved one, who you think is having problems, you kind of want to think about what are you seeing? Kind of make a list. What are your concerns, right? Sometimes writing notes is good. And think about, are there other conditions that could be causing this? Maybe medication changes or lifestyle things or stress, diabetes, change in medication, a UTI, urinary tract infection.
Who
Don't
knew?
know why.
Who knew?
If anyone can ever explain to me why it makes elder people demented,
Yeah,
gives
yeah.
them dementia, I'd love to know why. I can't connect the dots. You
But it
check,
does.
that was
It
all.
does.
It does. First thing you look for. And then the other thing is think about, and I'm just going to say this about early diagnosis. Back in the day, it wasn't as important as it is now, that they can actually now, through different tests, blood tests, DNA tests, and MRIs, establish what kind of dementia it is. And there is no pill that will make Alzheimer's go away, but there are medications that can slow the progression if caught early enough, you know. And catching things early and getting that diagnosis helps you to plan for the necessary moves. I mean, we knew when Glenn started going in and out of the hospital and we convinced them that they needed to go someplace, that they chose a place that had independent assisted and memory care
So it could,
so that their path right was there. And then also talk to other family members or friends. Have they noticed changes? And a lot of times, the person that's with them 24/7, say the husband or your father, they don't notice the
no,
changes so
because
much
it's,
as you.
yeah. It's
Right.
like gaining weight. I didn't know I was gaining weight. I see myself every day. Right? But if you haven't seen me in a year, you might go, "Holy smokes, Robin, lay off the french fries."
What happened?
Yeah.
So particularly, when family members, and maybe you're like, well, Dad, maybe you didn't notice it, but I've seen a huge change in Mama over the last month. And Dad may be, a little defensive about it because they could be covering for each other because they do. And then, but talk to your other family members or friends, your sisters, your brothers, your other friends to see, is it just me? Or are you seeing this too? And then when it comes to approaching them, with that team of loving people, what's our best approach? Who's going to be, are we going to draw straws to
Who's
see
gonna be the
who's
bad
going to
guy?
broach the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is best not to try and do, let's say, an intervention.
Right.
No, you don't want to like descend on them with a surprise dinner and everybody, talk,
It's all of
try
a
and
sudden
convince.
everybody's around the table going, "Mom, we think this is happening," and "Mom, you're forgetting that," and the
Yeah,
milk was in the
no,
closet, and
yeah,
all...
not productive.
no.
So maybe one or two. My sister did the convincing that they needed to move. I did the legwork and finding the right place.
Well, and dividing and conquering among siblings and others is very helpful. With my mom, my sister is the CFO of mom. She handles her bills and her banking and all of that, and I'm operations, right? I am managing, this and this, things that need a more flexible schedule,
Uh-huh.
operations.
Right.
She's financial, and that works for us
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because,
And it helps.
well, and I would say too, and as 60-year-old people in our 60s, you and I, we need to think about this for the future,
Mm-hmm.
right? Especially if it's in our family, right? What is the likelihood that something like this could affect us in our future?
Right.
And what do we want done about it, right? What do we
Yeah.
want done?
Mm-hmm.
And so while you can still make decisions on your own, let's make some
Right.
decisions
Right.
and tell your kids, your loved ones, whomever are those people in your life,
Uh-huh.
that if you start seeing something hinky, tell me. And have that trusted friend that will do that for you.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's my thought on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we had time to say, get me joint on accounts or give me additional power of attorney because, so we had time so that it was easy for me to take over Mama's advocacy and
Yeah.
care with
Yeah.
Glenn Pat,
Well,
you know.
because if we don't do that, and if we, as the individual, are going to be too proud or too fiercely independent to put this plan in place with our children or whoever those people are, then that's only going to hurt us in the long run.
Yeah.
And so I would just caution everybody that let's go ahead and get some of these things in place. It doesn't mean you can't change it later if you so choose. If you fall out of favor with somebody, you can say,
Mhm.
I don't want Vivian managing my meds. She might, yeah. I don't know. But to be able to have that in place takes so much that if this were to happen, just because you plan something doesn't mean it's going to occur. And yet, if it were to happen, then you have choices in place that you put in place, not somebody else.
Exactly. Exactly. And you have to think about where you want to have that conversation that's comfortable for them. And like I said, not an intervention, just maybe one on one, two on two. And what do you want to say? You almost want to kind of have a little script so you don't in your head, like I've noticed this and I'm concerned. Have you noticed this too? Are you worried? Or you don't quite seem like yourself lately, or, you know, I noticed this and it's worried me. Has anything else like that happened? Like, did you get lost trying to make it to Maple Shades? And then offer to go with them to the doctor if they want, you know. Try, talk about the fact that there's lots of things that could be causing it. It might not be your worst fear, and see if the doctor can help us figure out what's going on. And the sooner we find out, the sooner we can address it. Denial is not just a river in Egypt,
It's
that's old adage. And or I think it would give us all peace of mind if we could go to a doctor. And I will say this, I went to a lot of doctor's appointments with Glenn and Mama and with Mama, and I would always ask, do you mind if I record, because I can't, I like to be able to go back and see what the
yeah.
doctor's saying.
Well, and I think
And yeah,
too, and I think that's kind of how you approach it. If you want to accompany them to the doctor, it's just like, Mom, another set of ears can only be helpful. Another, Mom, you don't like to ask questions, and I over question. So doctors can be over questioned.
right. And they would come back from whatever doctor. Well, what the doctor say? Oh,
And it's fine. I'm fine.
yeah,
It's
that
all
was
fine.
yeah,
You're
it's
like,
all good.
I don't know that that's true, Mom.
Right.
We Are One Heart is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to bridging the gap between the needs and resources of low income seniors and veterans. Rooted in compassion and love, our mission is to provide housing, living assistance, and access to critical resources that ensure dignity and support for the elderly in underserved communities. At the heart of We Are One Heart's work is the belief that every individual shares a common humanity, a heart connected through love and care. We are committed to creating a future that honors those who have shaped the past by offering programs and services that enhance their quality of life. For more information or to donate, visit wa1h.org. That's WA, the number 1h.org.
So, you may need to have multiple conversations or even tag team it. Maybe my sister has a conversation and maybe she's like that. I didn't convince them. Okay, well, I'm going to come in
Yeah.
and throw it in there. So, and then finally see a doctor, you know, see a doctor. And start with your primary care physician. Honestly, I'm going to tell you, I already have my primary care physician give me a basic cognition test every visit just because I want if something should happen,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be aware of it early on. But
And some
start
record of
there.
it. You've got a baseline now, right? It's a
Exactly.
baseline because now every year when you go for your and they do it again, they can go, "You're exactly the same," or "We're seeing this and it's not enough to
Right.
worry about," or it can't, I mean, just like anything else, right? It's a
Yeah.
baseline.
Yeah.
Because if there's suddenly a dramatic change in something,
Yeah.
you want to
And
know.
I also participate in Alzheimer prevention trials, which means every year I do, it's a much more painful online cognition test with flipping cards and remembering cards and stuff. But I've been doing it for years, to be able to see a graph of how I'm doing.
Interesting.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
Nothing wrong
Nope.
with that. But then your primary care physician could send you to a geriatrician, which specializes in people over 65. But not all are Alzheimer's experts or dementia experts or neurologists, and not all neurologists specialize in Alzheimer's. And then there's neuropsychologists and psychiatrists and psychologists and whatnot. And they can do, I have a variety of tests that can now better inform
Yeah.
as to what's going on. And is it even Alzheimer's or dementia or
Is it
what?
something else? I think we leap to this worst case scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is normal because again, as long as dementia's been around, I think it's, we're living so much longer than we ever did that this was something that the human body, it could happen to anybody, but we died before it did because we weren't
Yeah,
living that long. And
right.
so this is this is
Yeah,
something that is new only because we're living long enough for our brains to deteriorate.
yeah, yeah.
And so now we're still learning
Mm-hmm.
what it is and how to find it and how to see it
Yeah,
and all the things that may cause it or
right.
any of those things. And so it's my hope that people our age and younger are learning more things to preserve our brain health and doing the things like you're doing, right? Doing baseline tests every year, checking
Hmm.
this and doing these things to keep our brains active
Right,
to, you know, slow down any progression
right,
of brain changes that might be
right.
happening.
Actually, one of the presentations I do is on healthy living for your brain and body, you know. And I told one group told me because I've been doing all of the presentations for this group up at Union Park, and they're like, okay, now you're going from preaching to meddling, because we're talking now about diet and exercise and social.
Now you're just getting in my business.
Yeah, yeah. But
That's funny.
there are a lot of things that we can do to try and take better care. And I will. The only thing I'll say about that is anything that's good for the heart is good for the brain because the heart feeds the brain. So I will say that.
I think that is I think that's an easy way to say it, right? If it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain.
So one thing I do want to be sure and tell you guys is about some of the resources
Mm-hmm.
available.
Absolutely.
As I said, I'm a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association, and because I'm passionate
Yeah.
about this,
Clearly.
when this happens or you take this journey, you are just unprepared. And the more you know, the more you know.
Right.
So I want to give you guys an 800 number
Okay.
that I keep on my phone. It is a 24/7 helpline. 800 272 3900. And there are master clinicians and knowledgeable staff available 24/7. So so when I had to take mama to the ER and we find out she's had a stroke and they want to keep her in the hospital and send her to rehab, call them. What are my boundaries here? What is, how do I establish good boundaries for mama? I called them as recently as a couple of weeks ago about my friend that I want to help. And everything was over, everything I was trying, everything I'd given her, shared with her, it was overwhelming. Reading text, looking at websites, too much. So I'm like, how can I help my friend? Pop over with my iPad and I would read to her some of the information and then we talk about it. So
Just meeting them where
solution.
they are, right? Meeting them where they are,
Exactly. Exactly.
and
So
it's maybe there's a day they don't want to talk about Alzheimer's. I don't want
right.
to do Alzheimer's today. We can do it
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because
Kind of like a
today,
dolphin.
yeah, I don't want to do that today.
Yeah. So that 800 number is useful, very useful. And then the website is alz/org. And within that, you will find recorded webinars on the different topics. You will find, if you put in your zip code, you can find support groups for caregivers.
And you said that that was huge for you getting through this with your mom.
Yet other people, other people on the same journey, just, I don't know, doesn't feel quite so lonely.
Well, yeah, I mean, and here's the thing. There are hundreds of thousands of caregivers in our country today. And that is one hard freaking job. I don't care what level of caregiver you are. And many people don't realize even that they wouldn't even consider themselves a caregiver because it's my mom.
Right,
So they don't
right.
see that and they just do it because that's what they do. And so they don't recognize the amount of stress because maybe, I mean, full-time jobs, children, husbands, spouses,
Yeah.
your own life, and this going on with your parent, and
Hmm.
you don't know what you're doing. This is the
Yeah.
first time you've done Alzheimer's too.
Yeah. I will never forget this. There was one time when Mama had Alzheimer's, Glenn was in the hospital. I had auditioned for a show and had rehearsals, and I was having the kitchen redone.
Not the kitchen.
So my
Oh
kitchen was
God.
tore up, and that's the thing. And I'm working full time. And I was going from work to pick up Mama to take her to see my stepdaddy, taking her back, being sure she was settled in where they lived. This was at independent living, and then going to rehearsal. And there was one night it was supposed to be Charisma Church chapter
Hmm.
night, and I was on my way there. And I called a friend because I was just bawling.
Yeah.
And she said, "You don't have to do everything." And so, so that's when I kind of quit doing ABWA because my
So you
plate was
didn't have
full.
time. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not like you're not going to go pick up your mom.
right,
You know,
right,
I mean, you've got to really start thinking about, okay, what is the important thing right now?
right.
Right now. And just do that sometimes. And give yourself permission to sit in your car and cry.
Yes,
It's okay.
yeah. There's
It's
that, and
okay.
that is perfectly okay.
Then the amount of tears that I was crying a few years ago when this stuff was going down with mom and I didn't know what to do in the car, in conference rooms, in lobbies, in my office, at the hairdresser.
Yes.
I'm
Oh,
sitting
hairdressers
there
are
with
the
all this
best
on my
ones to
head
cry
and got
with.
a phone call and lost it
Yeah,
just there. And everybody was like, oh my God. And I'm just, because you can only do so much. And that's what I want to reach out to the caregivers that are listening and the potential caregivers is to remember to take care of you too,
right.
because this is
And
a big
there
job.
are and I need to remember to send you a list of the different presentations. There's a set of
Yeah.
5 that are part of the Empowered Caregiver series that talk about taking care of yourself, a bit, talk about dealing with dementia related behavior.
Well, we'll
So there's
definitely send all that. So make sure you send all that to me. We're going to make sure we're going to put that all in the resources in the show notes so that those listening will know where to go. We'll put that 800 number where they can find it easily. All those
yeah,
things because when you are suddenly, because things are slowly then suddenly, right? When you are suddenly forced with having to make these decisions, you don't know where to go. You don't. And you are looking here, you're googling everything, you're calling
mhm,
this one, and you are in urgency and fear and desperation.
yeah,
And so if we can have this one place that anybody listening can just tuck away as part of that plan
mhm,
and just know that this information is there, so if unfortunately you need it, you already have it.
Because it does feel like sometimes during the heat of the moment, like you're playing whack-a-mole,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
just trying to put out one fire after the other. If it's not work, it's mama or
Yeah,
whatever.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Vivian, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me and sharing your stories and, more importantly, just the knowledge that you have and the things that you learned while you were going through this just not so very long ago with your beloved mama.
Oh, thank you so much. The pleasure is all mine. It's just, that's all I can do is trying to help do what I can to help other people who take it or on the same journey that I took. And everybody's experience is different,
Sure.
you know,
But
but
I'm sure there are going to be people that are absolutely going to see themselves in you. Even if it's just a little bit, they're going to see themselves and they're going to see a part of your story that is going to align with a part of theirs. And I just hope that this story gives them, some hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's going to be hard, and yet you can get through it.
and you make the best of every moment because we're not building, you just make the best of that moment. Stay where your feet are.
Love that. Love that. All right. Well, thank you, Vivian. And thank you, folks, for tuning in to another episode of Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60. Make sure, please, that you subscribe and share this episode because it is so very, very, very important. And we'll see you next time on Relax, I Got This. Thank you for joining me on Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60. I know that time is our greatest asset, and I appreciate the time that you spend with me. If you're finding the information on this podcast useful, please subscribe to the channel on your favorite platform so that you never miss another episode. Don't forget to go to our website where you will find additional resources, downloads, and coaching programs. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60.